The following seminar was recorded live at the Los Angeles Sheraton Hotel on Sunday, April 14th, 2002. And now from the Foundation of Human Understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello.
Thank you for having the courage to speak the truth. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Shouldn't take courage in America, should it? Doesn't that tell you about America? See, you know that to speak truthfully takes courage because you offend everybody.
So my question, I did read this book. It's a great book, Adam and Eve Syndrome. And I understand now what love isn't. Okay?
Yes.
And then I was hoping maybe you could kind of explain to me what love is in the sense.
I can't.
Okay, but let's say like this. Let's say that a man and woman meet, okay? What would the healthy interaction be? What would healthy dating
tell you.
be?
See, that's something you should know for yourself. When you love your Creator, you intuitively know everything you're asking me. I can only tell you what it isn't. I can't tell you what it is. And I can't eat your food for you from now onwards. See? I can't digest your food or chew your food for you. You're going to have to see everything for yourself. I can't describe what love is. It's indescribably delicious.
Okay.
When you have love, you don't know you have it. When you have love for others, you do not feel love. And if you're brave, you don't feel brave. If you're generous, you don't feel generous. You feel none of it. And if you're victorious over your enemy, you don't feel a victory. Because everything you feel is, every one of those feelings is ego. Because it means you're taking credit. It means I did those things. I am generous. I am brave. But I don't have any of those attributes. It's given me. So if you're going to be brave, and if you're going to learn what love is, I can't tell you what love is. That's what love is. It's to be able to deal with all things without taking any credit, without even knowing that it's there. You know what will happen is you'll know if it isn't there. See, you know what it means to be healthy? Maybe looking around here, I don't think anybody does. But if you know what, well, you know what it's like to be unhealthy then. And so once you lose your health, you run to the doctor to get it back. But he doesn't know either, you know. He'll give you a pill to make you think you're healthy again. That's removal of symptoms. Oh, you're Paxil and Schmaxil, now you'll feel okay again. So, the thing is, when you lose your health, you may not be able to find your way back to it. And it's also when you lose your connection to Creator, when you don't have that connection, it is not an easy journey. It only takes the best of us, the most sincere of us. Only the most sincere. And Jesus said, narrow is the way and few are those that find out. Of all the billions of people that ever lived, handful. When I say a handful, I don't mean just 5 fingers. But just a small percentage, I don't know what that percentage is. Only a small percentage, and it may be only a small percentage of you people sitting here. So I don't want to shoot you down or anything, but I want you feeling, oh, I'm one of the chosen. You may very well be, but you won't feel like you don't feel like a chosen person. See? You don't feel special. But you will notice that, I think the only thing you notice that you're like a visitor. And you just, you've landed from another planet. And you kind of don't belong here. It looks kind of, you start to see people in the malls like little munchkins, trolls under a bridge. You start to see the selfishness of people. You start to see all that, but you're not affected by it. It's almost like you're you're sort of like in a bubble, and you're in Disneyland, and it's not real dangerous to you. There's danger, but you don't feel the danger. But you feel it a little bit. But then it goes away. It's almost like you have a feelingless existence. But you're alive. Because you see, if I burn my finger, and it hurts, I put it in cold water, it feels better. Well, if I have a burned finger, and it's burned, one, I can't use it very well. But if I have to keep it in a cooling solution to feel good, then that finger is useless. A finger has no feeling to it. Has no feeling. And if it has no feeling, it's useful. It does use. If your fingers, if your body parts are used to get feelings, you're in trouble. You're not alive. You don't have to have feelings to be alive. It's the fact that you have feelings, need feelings, to be alive means you're dead. You're trying to feel alive. It's like shaking an old clock. It'll run a little bit, then stop again. See? All right?
I
hope
maybe I asked it a little bit wrong. Okay. This is what I'm trying to ask. I wish I could have better words, but for instance, let's say I were to remarry, that is,
You're giving me lots of information without realizing you are. Go ahead.
So without feelings, then I can marry any man who I considered to be noble.
No, it's not quite like that. You have to be noble yourself.
Okay. So
you have to have a love of good, because you're not. You won't. If you have a love of good, then the chances are you'll be able to identify that quality of goodness in another person. That, even though he's not perfect, if a man is as perfect as Jesus is, he has no use for you. So you have to practice your perfecting on each other. See? But if you just see a quality in him, in other words, you'll be able to identify the decency in him. See? Then you can you can respect that. And also, by the same token, if he steps over the mark, you have the security of saying, "Not tonight, Buster." In not so many words, but you have a way of letting him know that he's out of order. As a woman, that's very appropriate, because you can't be an appeaser. You see, you have to have some kind of right and stand up for it against anybody, even if your marriage fails. And you see what I'm saying? Because you haven't lost anything if you lose a man that doesn't love you for your courage. But the standing up mustn't come with anger or hostility. Say, no, there must be a quiet rebuke. I don't know how to put it into words. There's no words. I can't describe it. But
are you saying that if I continue to improve in my goodness, then I will know who's right for me to marry?
Theoretically.
And
because I see that you're still an emotional person, very emotional, and you're struggling with that. And the fact that you're asking me these questions and struggling with these, you yet don't know what that is. And until you know what that is, don't mess with guys.
Okay.
I should have given this lady a chair. Are you all right?
I'm fine, thank you. I just came to say hello to you and your wife. We've been to the ranch. I started meditating many years ago. My son was deep into drugs. My husband did not have the patience to deal with him, and I, as second in command, if I didn't do something, then this child would not make it. So that's what I'm doing. I turned the radio on next to me, and you were giving me the answers.
That's sweet.
He no longer drinks. He no longer smokes. He has twin sons, 9 years old. And I started meditating made my commitment about 43 years ago.
Oh my goodness me, that must have been the first day I came on the radio.
I'm 80 years old. You are still in Los Angeles. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me, my family. I'm now a widow. But I want to ask you what I need help with. I'm the matriarch of this family.
A good
And-
one.
And they're mostly men, boys.
Yes.
They're young boys and old boys.
Yes.
I would like to be there for them, and yet I don't want to overplay my hand.
Yes.
Could you give me a guideline what matriarch means?
Matriarch is not King Kong with bloomers.
Yeah. Example is better than words.
Yes.
Yes.
Much better. Words occasionally.
Sometimes I feel a little lacking in
That's
wisdom.
perfectly good. I do too. I
And
felt a little lacking when I first started the talk this morning, since I didn't sleep last night, so I was a little bit off. But I seem to have recovered. Then I have to do
doing the meditation and doing God's will, I will be guided, you think, to do the right thing.
Have you not been guided okay so up to now?
yes. Oh, yes.
Then why
I'm
what?
80 years old.
Well, you're doing okay.
80.
I know. I'm not far behind
But
you.
I know I've known you for a long time. As you can see, pride, and I've gone through many, many facets of life, and I've learned from them, and you've helped me tremendously. I thank you so much.
Well, you're a sweet lady. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It is nice to know that, we've been around that long, and it kind of works. But you see, it isn't me. It's in the heart. And so there's really no need to ask those questions at this point. I don't think there's really a need to ask those questions. You'll know. I think she already knows. Don't you think so? She knows about that. She asked the right questions. And she isn't King Kong with bloomers, is she?
The other night you talked about something, and it's true what you say as far as it's stuff you say all the time, and it's just whether or not we're ready to hear it. And the other night you commented about somebody who, and I think maybe before my ego was so strong I didn't realize I had one. And when I reacted to somebody, I guess the question is, how do you not react if somebody pushes a button so that you don't have to disempower them and
That's a fair
disempower yourself?
question. How do you not react? Well, let's talk about it. Let's start how the reaction begins. Then we'll show you how it's established. Then we show you how to overcome the reaction that's established. See, so you and I meet on the street, and I'm rude to you. I really put you down, and you get upset. The moment you become upset, two things happen. Now, I'm a stranger, and I'm very rude, and I put you down. And so I'll be living in a small town. Sooner or later, you're going to meet me again. The moment you resent me or become upset, it's a weakness in your character. You may not know that as a weakness in your character, but it does do things. It weakens you more. It desensitizes you from God, if you know how I'm using that term. It separates you further from yourself. At the same time, it sensitizes you to me. Now that's like the Vietnam syndrome, post-traumatic stress syndrome. When you overreact to something, when you resent somebody, you sin. Sin separates you from one, connects you to the other. It makes you sensitive to stress, especially the stressor. It can make you generally sensitive to all stress. I'll talk about that in a minute. But now, let's establish that one thing. Now, I'm walking down the street, and I'm coming down the street, and you see me a long way off. And you know it's me. But maybe you see someone who looks like me, and you have a fright round your heart, but it isn't me. It does that too. it looks like me, but it isn't me, but you get a fright. But assuming that it is me, you get that shock. That's your conditioning working. That's what you've established. That's the bond you've established to me. See? As I approach you, you're going to start, starting getting resentful towards the fact. Start getting resentful all over again. I haven't, but this time I'm not mean to you. I'm, good morning, how you do? I gave you no reason to be resentful, but you're resenting the fact that when you don't like your inferiority, you don't like that feeling, and so you resent me for it, even though I've done nothing to deserve that at time. Now, if you just look at all of your situations, so the minute you start to react to somebody, you add resentment to it. Now, for whatever reason you do, if you do that, is that correct or not? Have you noticed it? How many people have noticed that? All right. Well, what you're doing, it's a vicious cycle. Once you sin and fall from grace, once you don't forgive somebody once, they don't have to. They don't have to do anything wrong the second time. Their very presence makes you resentful to them. Not only that, it's called projection. You may resent your father and then project it on your husband. And he's done nothing wrong to you. But because he's a man, and your father was a man, that's the Vietnam syndrome, right? See? It's called transference. You resent everything that looks like him. You can't help it, because once you start to resent, you become addicted to resentment, because it becomes a means by which your ego flowers. In other words, it starts to give you a sense of indignation and righteousness. And it gives you the power to move and have your being always in the wrong way. Always sensitizing you more to not just to the man, but to the flowers and the bees and the shrubbery, that you're getting angry clipping the fence because you clipped, one of your best flowers. And you get resentful towards the flower because it was his fault. They got in the way. So I don't live at my house very much in Ventura. But my next door neighbor, I never met him before, he just moved in. And I introduced myself to him, he introduced himself to me, and I noticed that's why I was using that example. He was clipping his flowers or something. I could see the energy he was putting into it. See, I said, what kind of business do you use? He said, well, I'm a health engineer. I thought to myself, some health engineer that is. I said, you know what I do? I help people deal with stress. Like, you notice when you're clipping your flowers? I said, resentment is a hypnotic emotion, and you're kind of addicted to being angry, and see, you're taking your frustration on the flowers, and it's not healthy. And I had a nice little conversation with him. I'm not sure if you appreciate it or not. I have little conversations, I don't know what I do, and, he may hate me for the rest of his life. I have a 30-second sermon in an elevator in Las Vegas, especially when the door opens and people walk in, the cowboy hats and everything, And then, hi y'all. I said, you do any good? Yeah, I did. You win? Sure, win a lot. Yeah, how much? Nothing. What do you mean nothing? I didn't play. I won. They look at you weird. You win when you don't lose. The only way to win is not to play the game, right? And you might remember that. The only way to win is not play the game. Don't overreact to things. Don't resent them. They want you to be resentful. They want you to be resentful. They give you the tease offerings all the time. Tease offerings. Love and hate. Hate me. Go ahead and hate me. See? They got you. Then your behavior is predictable. See? You can have me. Your behavior is predictable after that too. You're done. Okay, who's next? Sorry to keep you waiting.
I'm Miss Resentful.
Hi, Miss Resentful.
Hi. Actually, just standing here, I can feel in myself that things that you are saying, I feel the resentment. I want that to be exposed. in myself because I do.
You have a whole history of that, don't you? Your whole life. It's built on it.
Pardon me?
I can see your whole life is built on it. It's time for it to let it all go. I'm glad you're seeing it. Having a little cry, that's okay.
I've always seen it. I
You resented seeing it. You
Yes,
resented it?
exactly. I'm Miss Wonderful. I'm the one, that I have all the answers. I'm never wrong. I've always had to be perfect in my life, the role model or whatever it is. But that's not what I want to say. What I want to ask.
You're resenting having to play that role model.
Yes.
You're resenting having to pretend.
Yes, because
See?
I'm not.
Resent, everything resent.
Yes.
And then it makes you, when you resent, you feel guilty. When you feel guilty, you're the person that's the responsible one. You become super responsible. You understand? See, resentment produces two opposite extremes in every behavior. Every situation is demanded of you. If it's responsibility, resentment produces towards responsibility, irresponsibility, or the jails are full of irresponsible people rebelling against being responsible. Or it's full of people like this lady who is feeling guilty and thinking that the reason why she's guilty is because she's not responsible enough. That because there's a responsibility quotient inside us. Good people, soulful people want to be responsible. But when you become resentful, that part of you that is responsible starts to be the loyalty of that, instead of being to God in a noble way, it's to the people who corrupt you and violate you and demoralize you. You will serve the enemy.
All the time.
And you'll keep serving and serving, looking for love, and even if they're not their enemy, you spoil your kids. See? And you make them demanding and make them dependent on you. You'll become the center of the universe for them because you do so much for them, they do nothing of yourself, and you secretly hate them. Then you have a nervous breakdown because you hate them so much. Who knows what I'm talking about? See, now we're getting into the details of it.
Now what I want to know is it one step further, and am I possessed? I know.
How much do you repossess you?
I don't know how to laugh either.
You might be.
Well, if I am,
I'll find out.
to confront it. All right.
We'll come into that.
Okay, so I can sit down.
You'll be all right there.
All right, thank you.
Look, people can be that way for years and years and years, and it's heartbreaking because you waste your life being angry. You waste your life serving the worthless, giving your life to worthless people and making good people that might have been useless because you could do too much for them. So you see, when you're not in your center and you don't know what love is, nothing you can do is right. To try to get that through your head, nothing. You go to your grave and you've missed the whole meaning of life. And all it's required, there's only one thing required of you. Come up through the levels of consciousness, experience salvation, which is waiting to unfold, and forgiveness for your sins. Then you're clean. Spiritually, your soul is clean. Now you have a clear lens, clear eyes, inner eye to see things. You look through your eyes. You don't look with your eyes. You look through them. I look through my eyes at you. I have two pairs of eyes. I have one I'm looking through. See, and the ones, and then the eyes themselves. So I have two people. I got eyes. I have a hand, but there's a hand inside the hand. I have eyes, but then there's eyes behind those eyes. And I'm watching. People don't like that. I can't help it. See? They want to kill that. They want to kill it. They want to degrade it. They want to demoralize it. So I know I'm going to be subject to attack on that because I'm growing now. And I'm getting dangerous. When I was small, little stations, a few here, there. Well, You can do a little bit of defamation, and you've heard about things I'm supposed to have done and said, but that's all. That hasn't worked that well. But now I'm getting well known. See, very well known, and I have a lot of enemies. Maybe half the country would be an enemy, and that's a political force. And when you have a lot of political force, you can take your media and all your people who hate what you are, and you can, just like you can see the Israelis as the villains and the aggressors, and the aggressors as the innocent, so they can do that to me. So it's going to be a war. It's all they deal with. These people deal with perception. They don't deal with reality. That's how this country has been destroyed. They've played a game of perception. Perception is reality. No, it's not. They play with your brain and make you think what they want you to think and make you think it's your own idea. And they turn black against white, green against pink, rich against the poor. They know how to monopolize and to exploit your dissatisfactions. They know how to appeal. They know all the arts. They know all the dark arts, but you don't see them doing it to you, especially in the entertainment business. They're the most dangerous people of all. Because without the entertainment business, without that microphone, wrong can't be presented as right. The entertainment business ought to be, like it used to be, carrying the noble torch. The arts should be noble. And they have all been corrupted. Shall I give you an example of how that works? Mm-hmm. You understand? Let's just show you how it works. You understand it's your soul that they're after. They want to make you doubt yourself. So here's the typical way you do it. There's thousands. It's just by giving weight to the wrong side more than the right one. You're giving more news. You see how many words, how many opportunities the good people have to say something, and how many opportunities they give to the wrong side to make their case. It's just that simple. And you may not notice it, but it's having an effect on people. To make the wrong look like the right look like the wrong, and if you can unbalance a whole nation, you can control that nation. Because you're dealing with doubt. You're making people doubt themselves, you see? And when you make people doubt themselves, you believe that which causes you to doubt. See how that is? If you are made to doubt yourself, you are disconnected from the truth and allied with the lie, subtly. So, let's give a very concrete example of that. The art. So they, whoever they are, take a poor guy with no talent. So you make him throw dung and paint on the wall. Or create some monstrosity. Then they give him $1 million for it. They have money for that. They make him feel like he's Rembrandt. And it's headlines in the news. See, now all of a sudden, so they put $1 million to put it in a museum so everybody can see Piss Christ or whatever they call it. Is that right? Or Madonna with dung all over her. Now that's art, right? But look what they're doing. Then they put the statue of it or the carving in front of the museum, and they have an official ceremony as a work of art. You know it's junk. You see, the trouble is the authority and the fanfare and the experts who are being paid to say it's art know exactly what they're doing. They're making you doubt what art is. They're making you doubt what you know is right in your heart. And you think to yourself, ordinary people think, it's crazy. But a lot of unordinary people, subhuman people, who will buy that, line up to see it. There are people who like art desecrated, see, because heaven smells. If heaven smells of roses, it stinks to them. So when they see stinking art, it's beautiful. And when you see artists on the stage, defecating on the stage and doing all kinds of weird stuff, the stinking audience stands to their feet and yells with delight. Because that's the sickness of the age. That's what they want. They all this rock and roll music and this, what do they call this? Not the rock and roll, but the rap. What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. That is even presented on radio. It should be banned. But of course, free speech. Pornography, the North American man-boy relationship, free speech. All corruption in the guise of free speech. But there's no such thing as freedom. See? You're freed from sin, or you're freed from good. You're freed from evil, or you're freed from good, to put it simply. And so there's no real freedom. You serve one, or you serve the other. There's nothing in the middle. And the serpent will always have the right, in the free speech, to approach you, to seduce you. But the trouble is, you have to have a balance. You have to have a modifying force, like the church or the arts. You have to have a nobilizing influence to counter that. But in America, that's gone. The nobilizing influence of the church is gone. Too many verses and chapters. Too many altar boys. Too many priests turning over a new leaf, turning over a new page. See, and so there's not enough modifying influence to teach us how to deal with these things, because the church and the law itself is becoming corrupted. See, so Hitler Germany only rose to power because the moral voice of the church was muted. There's hardly any moral voice at all that's worth a tinker's cuss. You know that now, don't you? Whenever you see these talk programs, what you have is ministers who are not quite up to the cunning and the cleverness and the personality of the seducers. They look like right-wing nincompoops. And the Bible says, and the Bible says, and the Bible says, and the Bible says. Everybody goes. See? They make sure it looks like that. They don't invite me. You see, they don't invite me. Because I upset too many people. They're not going to invite me on Oprah Winfrey. Because that's touchy-feely stuff. I'm going to try to get myself on politically correct. I want to deal with one of those. Well, I want to learn. I want to have a little go with one of those Muslims who think it's okay, who think they're right about what they're doing. I haven't seen one say that they're wrong. He seems like to belong to that religion, if I may say so this time. He seems as though it's a prerequisite you have to hate Jews. That you have to serve this God compulsively. See, in America we have the choice to be religious or not. God wants, that's what's beautiful about America. God wants volunteers, not conscripts. So therefore, you have to have the freedom to choose. When you are compelled to have a God, then you have a devil. But if you have no other choice but to have a God who's the devil, then your whole existence, you don't have any other salvation from that, because the whole society is like that. Can you imagine standing up in Hitler Germany or in Imperial Japan and saying, I don't agree with anything? They kill you, bang. Can you imagine being a cannibal and saying, I don't believe in eating people? See? It's not, it can be considered not normal. And then you need to have your brain washed, or you need to be, made fried chicken or something. They put you in the soup pot. So when whole societies get turned around upside down, then you have what we're facing. That's what you have, what you're facing in Hitler Germany, what we faced in Imperial Japan, what we're facing now with the whole Muslim world. And what you're seeing now in Europe, if I may be a bit political a little bit, so what you're seeing is socialism. Socialism is soulless. See, oh yes, they're on your side. as long as everything's going right. I'll tell you a little story. You have to stand up to somebody. Somebody, does you wrong. So you and your friend, you decide that you're going to make a stand. You've got it, your friend hasn't. But still, we agree that something's wrong. You go up to these people and you say, look, this is wrong. Immediately, instead of being a dialogue, they start to rant and rave and turn on both of you, especially your friend. He's the weaker one. And start yelling and screaming and blaming him for everything. You this, can't find all the words. Imagine all the words. Very disturbing. Suddenly your friend turns on you. You ever seen that before? All right. That's the Europeans. They start when they start to see that the foe is bigger and meaner than they thought. They side with the tormentor. That's what terrorism is all about. In America, if we're not careful, if there's enough terrorism, we're going to start. Many Americans are going to start turning against America, and start seeing it through seeing Israel through the terrorists' eyes. Thank you. That's what terrorism's all about.
You're already doing it.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's on CNN.
I know it, and I don't know. I want to get the message out. I want to be heard, but I'm still not. I don't have a big enough soapbox yet. But it's very dangerous stuff because half the nation has already turned. And the politics are turning. And when the politics turn then everything turns upside down. When it becomes a majority, you've lost your freedoms, you've lost your democracy, you've lost your republic. That's what's at stake here. And so that you have to walk around as soulless people if you want to survive in a socialist system. You see how they're talking about right now. Kofi Annan, he wants to try. What's the Prime Minister of Israel's name? Sharon. He wants to try him for war crimes. Because the idea, now see, once you start to give power to these crazy people, the idea is that any violence is wrong. Any violence, even standing up for yourself. Well, you've made me a rebel right away. See? A rebel that won't go away. You'd make me a rebel that might have to use violence. I might have to join an army even at 75 or 80. Because that has to be fought. I can't live under a mind-loving system like that. See? You're better off dead. See? Winston Churchill says, if you do not stand up for what you know is right, when you can easily win, then there will come a time when you have to stand up when you know that you're going to lose. But there's a worst case. You may know that you're going to lose and die. But then you will decide that it's better to die than live as a slave. To fight and die and live as a slave. However, you see the European nations, sometimes it grieves me, although we had to do what we had to do, that we gave them back their freedoms. You see? But they're not made of the same stuff as America still is. America's still made of that stuff, good stuff. A lot of us have that. A lot of us do. And they don't understand us because we're descendants from pioneers. They're descendants from bureaucracies. See, they're descendants from poverty and from... Our descendants came from there to get away from all that, which doesn't need to be described now. And so we forged a nation that is free and has different rules and has bred a different kind of people, even though many of us have fallen. We can recover. Even those of you here have fallen and are recovering. And but Germany was a friend of Israel, but as soon as they started to see that all of the Arab nations were stacked against them, and they saw an economic loss, they started to cut off arms shipments and aid to Israel. See, that's like that friend. As soon as they saw that, it's like facing Hitler again. They start to appease. And appeasers, that's what feeds the problem. That's what empowers the Palestinians or anyone else to get more powerful, encourages them. But if you stand up when you can, if you stand up when you know you're right and you do it early enough, in anything, you save a lot of hardship. And it's called courage. If you appease and 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 appease, the minute you start, I'm worried about Colin Powell doing all that. It's just giving credit to these people and making it more difficult for the Israelis. And eventually, Israelis are going to have to fight, launch their nuclear weapons. They will. If the enemy gets emboldened, if they get emboldened, and they oppress Israel, and Israel's going to be pressed to the sea, what's going to happen is that by this appeasing, by this encouraging Arafat, see, and empowering them, by encouraging them, by appeasement you encourage, you embolden, when they could have been defeated a long time ago. And then the rest of the world joins in. Israel will be there by itself, with no friend. Even America will be able to help. And when that happens, when she's back against the ocean, sea, then she will do what must be done. Do the unthinkable, what anyone would do. There'll be a strategic moment when every one of those 400 missiles will go off. And the horror, it can't be imagined. Be like a picture of hell, desolation. But they will have brought that on. They would have brought it on. They would have, in other words, the appeasement. When you appease anybody, there's a certain diplomacy that you do need to do to avoid fighting, obviously. But when it's appeasement, the enemy knows it. And you give them power. And when you give them power, they become more vicious. When you become more vicious, you appease. Because once you start to appease, you've lost already. The game's over. It's only a matter of time. Then you'll have to fight a war that you never needed to fight in the first place. That's what happens when you don't have courage. That's what happens when in your own family. Who knows what I'm talking about now? Politics applies, the same principle. If you don't stand up to your brother, your mother, your sister, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, if you don't do that, what you're doing is creating a problem that you have to live, an unbearable problem that you'll have to live under. That's what terrorism is, to make life so impossible that you have to live under those conditions. You have to live under the dictates of the terrorists, or life will be impossible. That's what it comes right down to. You've got to fight back. There's a right way of fighting back and a wrong way of fighting back, and I'm not saying when I say to you, don't be resentful, that doesn't mean to say you can't punch somebody out. My word of honor, I could sooner look at you and punch you on the nose than I had to. Jesus threw the money changers out of the temple and nobody touched him. Right? A righteous indignation. I can tell you some really interesting stories about my life. When you do it, it terrifies. When you stand up with that strength, which you don't even know is strength, you just feel like your legs are glued to the ground and you just got to do what you got to do, and you don't notice courage, you don't notice any fear, you just find yourself doing something and it's all over before you, it's twinkling of an eye, and you say, what did I do that for? But you did it. And your whole life changes at that moment. The whole life changes at those moments of courage. You see? Otherwise, the ugliness barges through you and you become the instrument of it. You see? It takes you over. And so there's some magic in courage. Don't be afraid to stand up. Even though your knees shake, do it. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to run off at the mouth.
Nancy from Los Angeles. Can you hear me? Oh, now it's on. Okay. You spoke earlier about man-woman relationships where in our society, in the world, man needs to pull something out of a woman. And this goes to my situation that I experienced a few days ago. I met a light acquaintance at the Starbucks for a coffee date. And I was always, respectful, and we were cordial, and we sat down, and he proceeded to let me know that I ignore people, quote unquote. And I didn't understand what he meant. And we were talking, and I guess he wanted more warmth out of me. And I told him, well, I don't really know you that well. I mean, I feel like I've always been respectful to you when I see you here with your friends. And he said, and then he started giving me a lecture about how wherever he goes, he smiles at everybody, and how all of his transactions work so well in business because he puts out those...
And only you don't appreciate him.
I don't know where this man is coming from. I was trying to listen to him because,
you know what you need to do? You say, this is what you do. Stop. I don't want to hear it. Leave my table. I don't want to be lectured to. The minute you allow yourself to be lectured to, unless you're going to clobber him.
No, I remember you shared once how you could hear criticism, and maybe there's some truth in it.
No, this is not criticism.
But I wasn't sure at the time, so I was trying to understand what he was saying.
No, don't try to...
Excuse me, I used the wrong word.
Yeah.
I used the wrong word. I was trying because maybe, there are people like strangers. I've learned a lot from strangers, traveling by myself. And I wasn't sure.
I don't get that from you.
Okay.
I don't get that.
Okay.
Because it's troubled you, as you wouldn't be standing there.
I wanted to ask your feedback on it because I wasn't sure.
If you were to handle it right, you wouldn't ask me for my feedback. You're troubled by it.
You're right.
See, and you're troubled, right, because you allowed yourself to get yourself to make excuses, to make excuses for yourself, and to listen to him politely, and then to engage into a dialogue, because that's a whirlpool. When there are some people who know how to play the game, and the minute you start to respond to them, they can overcome your objections. And then you have to object again, and they go overcome your objection, and pretty soon you get lost. Mm-hmm. And they suck you right in. They make you doubt yourself. Whenever you meet a person like that, you're dealing with a dangerous character.
Well, I totally knew I will never have coffee with him again.
No, but the point is, it's the way you handle it.
Him,
the way you deal with it. I have a grandson who's on drugs. I will forbid him to come near any of my grandchildren. I would love to help him, and I would help him get started with a career and everything, but he walks down the street with his guitar and everything because his mother did a number on him. I don't know. It's this difficult thing to deal with. I can't force my will on him, but he thinks he loves me. But I said, he's a parasite. I said, how do you make a living? He says, well, God provides. I said, yes. Or your low-life friends. And every time they help you, they're hurting you. See? Everyone is sorry for you, and you've got a good mouth on you. Well, you say, well, why don't you love me, Grandpa? I love you. I said, no, you don't know what love is. You do not love. And pretty soon, I let him know. And I said, Joshua, you do not know what love is. You're a parasite. You're a drug addict. You think your reality is better than mine? I've got reality. You're lost in your head, my young man. And how dare you tell me you love me? You're a parasite. You love me because you leech on me. You leech on everybody. You could love everybody that way if you leech on them. And they allow them to be the host. And so he walks away. The thing is, I will not allow myself to be imposed upon, and I will not allow them to impose their idea of love on me, or my family, or my grandchildren. Stay away. And when anybody starts to talk to you that way, the thing to do is say, stop. I know what you're trying to do. Get away from my table.
Okay.
Don't be afraid of that. Okay. I don't want a lecture from you. You're a stranger. You don't know me. I don't like you. You're quite correct. You're obnoxious. Don't be afraid. But you're afraid to hurt his feelings. You're afraid to hurt his feelings. Hurt his feelings.
Okay.
Okay? Don't be rude. Just hurt his feelings.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate this.
Right or not?
Yes, you are right.
Get some courage.
Okay.
My name is Patricia, and I listened to you maybe 15 years ago, and then I found you on the radio last week, and it hit some truth in me, and it compelled me to come today. What I wanted to bring up is you mentioned earlier about mental illness, and I've been mentally ill person all my adult life, supposedly.
You don't sound like a mentally ill
That's because
person.
I take my medications. But the thing, what I want to bring up is, I want to know, how can I let my children go without making them feel responsible for me? Because my 18-year-old daughter is on her way out to going to college, but she still feels some sense of responsibility towards me. I don't want them to feel like they have to take care of mom, that I can take care of myself.
Are you still taking medication?
Yes.
You're not taking care of yourself.
How do
There's
I
a
get
pathetic.
off?
There's a pathetic part of her. There's a part of her that she resents you for not being. Children want their parents to be princes and princesses. See, they really do. Am I right? Don't you want your father to be a prince and your mother to be a princess? Isn't that what you really want deep down inside? Well. So if you have a sick parent, even if children have a father with only one leg, the child may resent the fact that the father only has one leg. Believe it or not, it happens. They have an imperfect father. He stutters, or whatever is wrong with him. I used to think that I was going to die of heart attack when I was 42, because my father died from heart attack when he was 42. So that was his imperfection. So does anybody know what I'm talking about? You may think that you're going to... You tend to, by osmosis, you tend to pick up something from your dad, good or bad. See? So, you got something wrong with you, and that irritates you, that makes your children resent you. You have no business being wrong. You've got to be right for them.
But how do I find that rightness? I just tuned into you and I want to...
I know that. I'm just pointing my finger, not in a mean way.
Oh, I understand. I mean, once I left my husband, I got a whole lot better. But I still am not 100% better.
That tells me a lot.
I mean, the whole married time that we were together, I acted out the insanity of our marriage and mental illness. And I think it's become a pattern of life for me. And I haven't been able to let go of it.
Yeah, well, you haven't got my cassette yet?
No, as I said, I listened to you one time this week.
I think you're going to be okay next week.
Do you have things for sale today? And which cassette do you think it is I should get?
Just spend $12 and that's enough.
Okay. Thank you.
You don't need any more than that. But I will, if you want more questions answered, I'll be happy. I mean, you didn't ask me much. I just wanted...
Well, my main concern is how to...
Look, you've listened to me for 4 hours, almost 4 hours today. And you've heard me say, if I were to distill everything down to a very fine, distilled essence, that you have to do two things only. If it's any more difficult than that, you'd never be able to do it. Mm-hmm. This is difficult enough.
I even made myself so sick yesterday that I didn't think I was going to make it today.
You made yourself sick?
Yes.
Why?
Because there was a war going in my head.
Part of me didn't want you to come here.
Don't go and do go. And
that's the dark side. That's the dark side that doesn't want you to get better.
Yes.
That's the dark side that affects your children and holds them too as it holds you. Mm-hmm. You see that? And you know where the dark side comes from? You will soon, but your past doesn't matter to me right this minute. As a new listener, we will not discuss the past. We will not discuss outcomes. All I want you to do is just two things. Sit quietly. Get above the squirrel cage of your head. Because that way, there's two of you. Right now, there's only one of you. See? You're you're like in a daymare. A nightmare, but a daymare. The consciousness is lost in your squirrel cage of your thinking. Like Alice in Wonderland, see? See? And it's emotionally sustained by anger. Things upset you all the time and keep you spinning. Yeah. And keep you from having clarity.
I hold my anger and I don't express it.
I know, but you don't need the anger. You can live without it. You're almost addicted to anger. It's almost like you have a personality that's addicted to functioning like that. Damned if you get it. Because if you stop being angry, if you could stop being angry right now, if I could take it all away, you'd feel as guilty as hell. If I could take all your anger away like that, if I could just take it away, that sustains that, keeps you not from seeing your truth. You stay angry so you don't have to see truthful. You stay angry so you stay confused. When you're confused, you don't have to see the light. You have excuse for everything I can't see. I didn't know. You see? And so, if I could take that anger away suddenly, the guilt would be unbearable. See, because what you're doing is resentment and judgment, they're connected. Judging, resentment supports judgment. Anger supports judgment. And there's a judgment on your judgment. That's your conscience. See? But when there's a judgment on your judgment, judgment is the only way you know how to be right. You feel superior. When you feel hard done by, you feel like you deserve to be angry. Go ahead, be angry. You deserve it. Have a nice morsel of judgment. See? And so what happens is, when you're angry, when you're judging, that's ego. There's a judgment. Divine ego is judging the judgment. When you judge the judgment, you've got conflict. You're burning up. And then you've got to find something to be upset about to stay ahead of the judgment. So you're always looking for things to be upset about to stay ahead of the judgment. It's like you're drunk on it. You're addicted to judging to stay ahead of judging. It's going to kill you. It will kill you. That's called mental illness. In this manner of speaking, it's like a mental illness, but it's not mental, it's spiritual. Spiritual as sustained by the emotional, mental, the fantasies, the judgment, the thoughts, swirling around in the head there, see, to escape reality, to escape the pain. But the means of escape creates more pain. The judgment, creates more judgment upon you. So the pain grows as you deny it, you see, because the sin grows. Now, what I want you to do is to sit quietly, get above the thoughts, because you've got to come towards the pain. You've got to come towards the knowing that there's something wrong with you, and it's not just mental illness, it's a spiritual malady.
I know
you haven't
that.
learned to forgive. You haven't learned to forgive, and you probably had a father that was cruel, and you're probably an appeasing lady, and you gave in to your husband, and the more you gave in to, the meaner he became, and the meaner he became, and the more angry you became, the more you felt guilty, the more you felt guilty, the more you wanted to try to make him happy, so you didn't have to be angry, but you only gave him the power to be meaner. Right. Is that the story of your life?
That is.
Thank you.
Unfortunately.
Let's cast them. No, stay there.
Unfortunately, it is, and as you said, you don't want to go into the past, but
I knew that already, see. But now you want to get better. You come up above the thoughts, and now it will be painful. Trust me, you've got to come towards your guilt and not run from it.
there are sexual issues involved.
Always.
And
Remember I said all sin is sensual? All judgment is sexually awakened?
I became aware of that 20 years ago, and I realized the initial aspect of my illness, but I wasn't able to move above that.
I know that. You will now. When you get above your thoughts, that's where the light is. That's where the power is to see your fault and feel ashamed of the anger and hostility, which is called judgment. The judgment is the sickness, not the mind, the soul. The soul is the sick one. The mind simply serves it. The mind, your fantasies and your feelings serve the sick soul. And the sick soul, the ego, demands that the mind serves it.
Also, I feel a lot of shame because I do have mental illness.
You're not mentally ill. You're spiritually ill. It's a lot easier to understand. And because then it's curable. The mental part, what are you going to do? You have a chemical imbalance, or which chemicals you're going to use next? You see? It's much easier to understand that spiritual illness. It's spiritual, and all you have to do is have a little cry and just face a few things. And then from then onwards, learn to be patient and long-suffering, and learn to look for the opportunities to not be angry and resentful. And your children will suddenly see you start sparkling. You'll be able to throw away your medications.
Yes, lots of
And you
it.
start living again. See? Because you'll be forgiven. Once you realize that God's forgiving you, then what is following you as a judgment doesn't follow as your judgment, it follows you as redemption. The burden is light. See?
I've tried to convince myself that I've forgiven the people that did this to me. But every time I go back, no, I haven't forgiven.
No, you haven't. No. You don't know what it is yet. You don't have. So your power, your forgiveness isn't God's forgiveness. Your forgiveness is appeasement. Your forgiveness is condoning or condemning. And you either condemn or you condone, but it's still a judgment. When you condone somebody, you're judging them. You're saying you're all right when you're not all right, and no wonder they hurt you. See? So you have a fight with your husband, and you feel guilty. And so he comes back with his hat in hand after getting drunk, and you don't want to lose him because you need something to judge. So what you do is that you feel guilty, so now you forgive your husband. So you kiss and make up. He's sorry, and you feel guilty, and you're only too glad to give up your judgment, so therefore you forgive him. But your forgiveness is not God's forgiveness. When you forgive somebody, you're making them worse. Because you're still doing everything out of ego. An ego does not have the power to redeem anybody. It only has the power to, when you forgive someone, to make them worse. Or to make them dependent on your forgiveness. See? So they keep doing wrong. So you wonder why your husband goes out and gets drunk again. I'm just pulling something out of the hat here. And now he does it again to you. Why? You don't understand the dynamic. You forgave him. That's condoning. He feels better. Oh, thank you for forgiving me. Now I can go out and do it again. It's not how he thinks, of course, you know. Why am I talking to you all evening? All morning? No, the lady, yeah. I've been talking to you all day, haven't I? You got the idea now? Yes, I do. Good.
I'm not sure. There's three things. One is I've been dealing with a lot of anger and resentment toward my husband, and it manifested itself in an inability to do anything around my house for almost 3 months. And then I watched the dust pile up.
You can't do anything right?
Couldn't do anything around cleaning. And then when I finally got over that and, did the thing I had to do, in the midst of doing it, all these thoughts of anger about my husband came up, and a resentment of something that happened 30 years ago made me angry all over again.
Because you are taking an accounting of all that. If it's 30 years old, you've been adding to that 30 years for 30 years.
Yes,
right?
Non-forgiveness. And then I tell him I'm angry at him and that, I know that's wrong. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is my husband is from Ramallah and from the Palestinian part of the country.
Yes.
And he watches CNN, and I listen to Michael Savage, and I read the Wall Street Journal. He reads the LA Times. So there is, though, in me, something that comes up. I know if I were in the right place, I could speak to people without the judgment and anger. But when I see what I see, I either have to be quiet, because I'll just rage with anger, which would not convince anybody, would be destructive.
No, it wouldn't.
Or just give in to what they're saying.
No,
I want to be able to do it a different way.
Those are the wrong choices.
I know. I want to know how I can reach...
You have children?
I have 4 sons.
All grown up and left the house?
The last one is away.
What kind of man is this man?
My husband is a very educated man,
Yeah.
a very successful businessman. He came with nothing. He's taken care of his family. He's brought them all over here from that city, helped them get established in businesses. My husband is a very decent man. But because of education, I think, the liberal education...
Does he love you?
Yes, I think so.
Well, then maybe he's worth saving.
I definitely think he is. But I don't want to become egotistical and think that I'm the one that's saving him, because in a way, because of my stiff-neckedness, we've kept away from those people, a lot of those people, because I always say the wrong thing.
What people are you talking about?
Like the Middle Eastern people in the community. We don't associate with them a lot.
Well, he doesn't either.
No, partly because of me, because I'm intolerant.
Well, so what do you ask?
So what I want to know is, how do is it because I'm angry with my husband that I can't talk about these other subjects? That's the source of it.
See, anger in your heart robs you of the grace to, it robs you of the right relationship with anything.
And when that's established, then all these other things
all fall into place.
Just be
so I don't want to do my lecture all over again.
No,
but you understand that the other night I said it on, was it Friday night?
I heard you do things, but do it without being upset.
The secret is, first of all, you get to that state, then You preserve the state. The whole idea is to preserve the state of fidelity with God by not falling to judgment or being puffed up with compliments. That's important. If people give you compliments and praise you like a holy man, says Dan in the Old Testament, don't be uplifted. Thank you. Ooh, I feel so good that you love me. See? And if people damn you, don't get angry and don't be downhearted. See? Don't be moved one way or the other. You must neutralize that temptation, because when you do that, your pride starts to die. Your ego and everything that's connected in your body, in your conditioning, starts to obey you because you've obeyed God. Your fidelity with the Creator has been tested and not found wanting. Therefore, you get a reward called strength. So you overcome. You get your bank account. You have sort of a spiritual capital. You see? And God loves you for that. He loves you to endure. And therefore, but that's all you need. You need nothing more than the ability to do those two things, and there's nothing more to it. Of course, you can read the Bible and discover who that is, and then you discover it is the Christ. So you don't need that from me. See, I don't want to blabber about that. You've heard enough about who that is. And many of you have been turned off, but now you maybe appreciate who that is all along, but I've expressed it in a different way. That's who He is. He shadows you as the Savior all your life, waiting for you to wake up, like the prodigal son, or the prodigal daughter, if you like, so that you come towards Him. But right now you're running away with your fair weather friends. You're running away in your judgments, and you're running away in your drugs and your alcohol and your pleasures and your televisions and your music. See? But if you be still, you will know Him. It means you forego those supports, those things that draw you away and make you feel comfortable because you don't feel your conscience anymore. See? So if you could just do that, no more is necessary. All of the rest of it, the future, whatever the future will bring, will come through that lens, pure lens. There's nothing, whatever happens, bear it. Whatever you have to say it. And if you'll know if it's not timely, you don't say it. You don't bluster. You see what I mean? The timing is right. I call it spiritual diarrhea. You'll just know when it's time to go. You can't hold it up.
She likes to treat her like a Middle Eastern wife, and you know all how that is. And I think that this is what's keeping that going.
Well, but it doesn't matter what he does, it's how she reacts. And if she learns to become a gracious lady and shine like a light, if he's a decent man, he'll appreciate you. You'll shame him in a good way, without meaning to. It'll be quiet shame inside, and he won't tell you. You'll start to see, maybe she's right. I feel a little embarrassed. Sometimes the patient silence speaks louder than words. The Spirit speaks. It doesn't have to always have words. See? Hello.
Hi, Lloyd. Oh,
one more caller.
I just want to brag.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me how wonderful I am.
Okay. I have 3 sisters. Okay.
Yes.
They all are mentally ill. They all need to take sleeping pills, antidepressant pills. Well, they're all kind of like dingy, and me, I don't have to take anything. I don't even want to take an aspirin.
Okay.
The last time I came here to one of these, I was real overweight. I weighed about 200 pounds.
It looks like you need a few hundred pounds.
No, but wait a minute.
Just kidding.
You told me.
I'm just kidding.
You even told me how fat I was.
Really?
Look, I came up and... You even told me how fat I was.
Well, no wonder I don't recognize you.
And how, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I just wanted to tell you, I'm in control of my weight. I'm in control of myself now. I'm in that Weight Watcher diet, is really working on me. I've already lost 49 pounds, and I praise myself every day, and people praise me, how good I look, and I love it, and
You're in control of your life, but you're on a diet, a special Weight Watcher diet.
What I'm trying to say, I have control of my
Let me talk about diet.
eating habits.
Let me talk about diet.
Yes.
All right, ready for diet?
Okay.
I'm not going to try and knock you. I'm glad to see you losing the weight, don't get me wrong. It's because being overweight is not good, but there's a right way of losing weight and a wrong way.
All right.
And losing the weight is not the issue, it's how you lose it.
How you lose it.
Because how you lose it it says who's in control. Now let's get back to the story of the Garden of Eden, because you see, there are so many ways you can interpret this. There's thousands of different variations to this one little story. Food. The forbidden fruit was what? If it was a bicycle, bicycles will have effect on you for the rest of your life. You'd have all different kinds of bicycles, different shaped bicycles, big ones, small ones, and your whole life would revolve around bicycles. So therefore, with men, it's not only the problem of women and words and sex. It's food. Women have problem with food, and men have problem with sex. You see. The word diet comes from the Greek word dieta, which means way of life. And that's very, very revealing, because the Hare Krishnas, if you see how they're converted, once they get converted to a diet, and the diet sustains their Hare Krishna-ness. And if you look at your cultural food, you remain with all your Italian ways if you eat Italian. You see? And that you remain Jewish, if you eat matzo balls and chicken soup and whatever it is, kishka, whatever the food. You see, the thing is, your cultural food sustains your cultural identity, but it keeps you from who you are. A cultural identity is not your identity. Jewish is not identity. Christian is not identity. Christ came to save us from the religious identities. There's no such thing as a Christian. There's only a saved Jew or a saved person. A saved person means you do not need culture. Let me put it this way. America is as close to what a culture could be, with all its imperfections. If Adam had not fallen and lived out his life and reproduced, if it was that way, if you stay close to the kingdom of heaven, you would have seen a paradigm unfolding on earth very much like a democracy, with the right people in power and everyone doing good and everybody being productive and no one killing each other, no mental illness, nothing like that. You see? But the Ten Commandments and the laws of the heart on the books have given us a legal framework so that we can kind of function within that, to keeping the bad guys from raping and violating the good persons, you see. But it's not perfect yet. The laws on the books, which are on the heart, is not good enough. All men must have the laws of the heart. We wouldn't need the laws on the books, but that's the perfect, and that's not to be achieved. It's for most of us to have it on our heart, so we're not the criminals. We are protected by the laws of the books from the criminals. Follow that? But often when the whole of society goes upside down, then most of the country becomes criminals, and then they have no tolerance for the laws of the heart on the books. They change the laws. See, then you have a Hitler Germany, and you have those dictatorships. You have them everywhere. But what I'm trying to say is that your cultural identity is controlled by what you put into your mouth, and you do not realize that when every bite you eat, you're sustaining all the flaws of your nature. This is very important. In other words, remember, someone's voice, someone's form, but now it's the food. The food, I actually neglected to mention that food is part of that conditioning. The forbidden fruit. Notice that everything you eat has to be dressed up. Like sex, women have to wear black stockings and negligees to make themselves much more attractive than they need to be. See? And so therefore it becomes a support for the male ego. And every time he indulges, he gets worse, and every time she has to be more of a whore. And so you see, when you go to French restaurants and you go places like that, you have to dress up the food with silk stockings and little ribbons on it, and it's a whore for your stomach. It's like going to you spend $30, $40 for a meal. You got the surroundings, you got the music, you got the fancy soufflés and God knows what, and the French waiters, with a napkin on their arm and making a fuss over you. It's all part of ego. Because all you need is an apple. But did I ever tell you the story about my mother? I picked up an apple one day. It was just for dinner. She says, and I started to eat it. She says, she took it out of my hand. She says, that's not dinner. So she took a thing and she took the core out of the center. She filled it full of raisins and spices. She took the peel off of it. She puts it in the, I don't know if the peel was on the thing. She put it in the oven, and then she gave it to me with all this dripping gravy and everything, juices. Said, that's a meal. She'd put something of herself in that. It wasn't good that I ate an apple from God. It had to come from her. And women preside over a family of pigs, and that's what they do. They like to make little pigs out of you, and little pigs go, oink, 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 oink. Oh, well, it's so good. That was so delicious. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. She's seducing you.
All right.
It's food. Everybody makes about food. Look at it. You get two fat slobs with chef's hat on the TV, and everybody goes wild over them. Everybody's watching how they're making it. They're being seduced. It's like a sexual thing. No, food is dangerous. Food has a taint. Now, I'll finish off this idea just 2 minutes. Food has a taint to it because of original sin. And because of ego, we have a wrong relationship with food and women. And women have a wrong relationship in giving food to men and themselves. Got that? Transference. Who grasps that? So therefore, Jesus says, listen how brilliant this man is. And it doesn't come across. The Last Supper. He breaks the bread, pours the wine, and he says, do this remembering me. Nobody understands that. I do. Because the first man did it forgetting him. And when you get upset and frustrated, what do? You eat to forget. You become a drunk. You eat when you forget so much that you forget that you're eating and you don't understand how you got fat. Then you look in the mirror and you get mad at yourself and get hungry again. That right? You see, it's an addiction to food. So you stuff yourself with that food. And so therefore, the problem with food is ego. Whenever you get upset, whenever you get frustrated, whenever you need comfort. And so the woman is the comforter with sex and food. And so therefore, if you want to overcome your problem with food, you have to overcome the problem of the ego. And the food is the last one to go. The food is the hardest of all of the. It's harder than cancer. You can cure cancer better than you can cure a problem. Who has a problem with food and diet? It's right at the bottom. It's right at the origin of all problems. It carries with it a taint. By its very nature, it tempts you to supports ego. By your very inheritance of it. Just like a man's inheritance, the first thing he sees when he becomes a little bit mature, he gets excited by a woman. It's not a natural excitement. It is an ego. It's like the very presence of a woman is exciting and stimulating unnecessarily in unhealthy ways. He's embarrassed and doesn't know what to do with himself. See? It's not a situation that is natural. Young man always feels embarrassed about that. And with girls go giggle. The boys feel embarrassed. If they ever overcome their embarrassment of it, they're in trouble. They become addicted to what helped them to overcome the embarrassment. They become accepted for their embarrassment. Therefore, they're addicted. Now they have a conscience following them all the way to the grave. See? There's got to be a proper teachings as far as boys have to have a proper guidance. They have to be instructed properly to understand their nature and have to understand their weakness for women. They're born with it. But how is that done? The father himself must be the example of that. See? If the father is weak for... Or an unusual mother. Yeah, thank you for that. Because they're rare. Unusual mother that sends the children to the father. If she has one. Because the role of a woman is to love her husband, respect for the respectable. Therefore, she knows that her job is done at a certain point. She transfers the authority to her husband for the upbringing of her children, as she herself is also being led in that direction towards heaven. See? Because it's the role of a man to bring the woman out of the female. Now we go back to the Garden of Eden again. It was woman. And you know how the news people talk about women as females. I do not like to use the word female because it's a female animal. All right? A woman is not a female. She's only a female if she's soulless. Then it's just a body. A bitch body. But a woman is a woman because she has grace. See? That's what makes a woman, so therefore, the man is supposed to, see, what happens is that when men fell from his manhood, he became a male. And when he became a male ego, he drew the woman, the female, out of the woman. In other words, he demands from her what's not good for a woman to give, only a female to give. See the difference? So when a man becomes a real man, he does no longer demand he demands the female to be a woman. See? He draws the woman out of her. And how does he do that? By being a real man worthy of her love. Her love draws her away from her female and the dark side and joins her to the man, and they become one flesh. See? So we have Christ in God, God in man, man with woman and children, loving all of them. The perfect paradigm. That's how it ought to be in every family. However, I'm speaking of the ideal. But now speaking once more about the food. If you have a food problem, don't worry about it for the time being. See, I know that you may be overweight and you have problems, and I don't think I can give a whole lot of advice to that because my daughter's overweight and she's on one of those plans too. But she hasn't looked at herself either. See that? I've told her, but she loves her father, but loving me is not enough. See, she has to find that stillness, and she hasn't done that yet. My daughter's got a lot of common sense, and she's a wonderful mother. She's still got that nervous energy. She's got this anger towards her mother. She's too attached to me. I know all that. See? And so therefore she has little frustrations, and she's a wonderful girl, don't get me. A wonderful daughter. I have the wonderful... Yeah, okay. All right, mother. Down, girl, down, girl. But you understand that there's a right way of losing that weight. There's a right way when you start to lose the interest in what the food, the taint of the food offers. And you lose interest in the taint of the food. It's not the food you want, it's what it does for you. See? It only has to taste good. You appreciate it. And if it just tastes good and you appreciate it, you're eating remembering him. But if you go do the wow, isn't that good? Yeah, everybody starts talking about how good the food is. You get lost. It becomes a hypnotic state. I give a lecture at the summer at my ranch, and this is what I say to them. I said, can you smell the food? Because we have a little cafeteria there. I said, I want everyone, if you get a tie knot in your handkerchief, I want you to think of Jesus. when you go through that line. I bet you can't do it. Just for the fun of it. I could just say, think of something else. But Jesus is appropriate. So I said, nice talking to you. I said, because the first thing that happens when you start to see that line, you start to think, that looks good to me. No, that looks better. No, you feel like you're going to be cheated unless you have both of them. So you have a little struggle, which one's going to be, taste the best for you, like it's that important. See? You make all these decisions. And the time you get to the other end of the line, you've forgotten. Because you're lost in the smells and the odors. And then you're sitting down, and I said, how many people remember Jesus? Because they kept on eating, they can't help but eating, forgetting. It's their nature. Their whole cultural life revolves around food. There's something about food that sustains the ego identity. And so therefore, to the degree that your ego disappears, and your anger disappears, and you start getting along with people, and there's less frustrations, because the frustrations all the frustrations around you are going to have to be diminishing. That's the reason why you eat. You may not be a drug addict, you may not be a alcoholic, but you're a food addict. It doesn't make much difference. That's your drug. See? So, as your frustrations disappear, and you start to notice, the food doesn't look so important anymore. That's nice. That's the way it should be. Simple. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have, since my wife says, with great dignity, now we had a very long session this morning. That 4 hours just went like that, 4 hours and 10 minutes. Did it feel like 4 hours and 10 minutes? No. It's strange, isn't it? It's like when you're talking meaningful things, it feels like you're sleeping. Because time goes very quickly, and if you live a meaningful life, time goes quickly too. But there's a different feeling that because when you don't live a good life, time can go quickly because you're asleep. You see what I mean? It's like when you're lesser consciousness, you're not aware of time. You're kind of focused in your imagination, and then you wake up one morning and one day you're old and bitter. Your time ran out and you haven't found what you're here for. Every time you eat, who said that? Did you say that? Yeah, every time you eat. But every time you, it's not just when you eat, it's everything. Because if you look at your environment, whether it's your work, you're lost in your work. Some people are lost in their work. They are their work. They're a plumber, they're a doctor, but they're not a person. They're a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim, but they're not a person. And so therefore, when you go to church or when you go to your mosque, you get your fix. And if you get your fix from a mosque, then you feel guilty without it. If you don't go to church or you don't go to your synagogue, you feel guilty. Because everything is a fix. Religion is a fix. Food is a fix. Sex is a fix. Music is a fix. You name all the things that could be good and then the things which are bad. It's the misuse of the good. It's the misuse of your body. Oh, it's my body, they say. I can do what I want with it. It's my body. Well, it's not your body. It's yours to use or misuse. You see, and to serve as a vehicle to find through time and space the purpose for which you're created. So if you want to say it's your body, okay, and misuse it, that's your choice. But it isn't your body, in the sense that you own it. I'm reminded of a story while everybody's sitting down, and Charles Darwin went up to heaven, and he's having a conversation with God, and he says, "Well, God, you see, we've just discovered how to clone human beings. I'm the representative. I just want you to know we don't need you anymore. So we can clone our own people now." He says, "Okay." So we can make our own people. So God says, "Okay, well, let's say you make a person." So he reached down to get a pile of dirt, because he was going to start from scratch. And God says, "Just a minute. Make your own dirt." There's a book I would like you to get before you leave, so you can kind of pretend you're going to the bathroom and go get the book. It's called Finding God in Physics. And it came to mind when I was talking about, Darwin and God and reaching down for the dirt. Because I'm concentrating not on the problems of human nature here, but I'm defying science. Defying science to say, "Science, you're wrong when it comes to the Big Bang. And I'll show you where you're wrong. I don't understand why you've missed it. It's common sense." And every physicist I ever spoke to was dumbfounded when I explained to him why the Big Bang doesn't work, why gravity is not a pull but a push. They don't understand gravity now. They really don't. They got all kinds of theories about gravity, but because Einstein said space is empty, and there's something scintillating in space, some kind of zero-point energy they call it, but he actually ignored the ether. Ether is a river of something that everything floats in. So that would give credence to pressures of gravity rather than pull of gravity. He says nothing there, basically. If there's anything there, if there's an ether, it has to be non-material. Well, he's right about that. The pressures I'm talking about, the ether that they don't know where it is, so they've ignored it, because there's no resistance to anything in space. When you throw a rocket into space, it will keep going forever and never stop, because there's apparently no resistance. There actually is, but up to certain speeds, there's no resistance. There's... Thank you very much. Oh, I thought God was speaking to me. I had a woman's voice. There was something. But what I've discovered is that in the book you'll read what this non-material ether is and where it comes from. The non-material ether is time. Time is an energy. Einstein might say, because he's Jewish, time is money. But in this book I describe what it is. And I don't want to waste your time, which is passing into distance. If something is passing, something is shaping things. But I'm saying to you, this ethereal something, that the only way you can know it is by ticking of a clock or aging. That something is happening. And you cannot separate time from space. Space-time. Let me just give you a little description so you see how much fun it is to read the book. Take a garden hose. See if you can grasp this. Take a garden hose. I only spend 5 minutes on this, and then we'll get cracking on it. And you turn the spigot on, and water flows out. Now, the water flows out, and water. Spigot. Turn the spigot on. Isn't that a spigot? The handle. Yeah. Faucet. Thank you. Faucet. Correction. And so the water comes out and flows. Now, what this water represents means that the faucet is still. It could be a spring from the side of a hill. Okay? But the water represents something. You know where you can describe this is trying to make something similar. So using a two-dimensional model, not three, it'd be too difficult. 2 dimensions. As it comes out, it starts to spread. The water has 2 things. It has substance and it has motion. Got it? The time has substance and motion because it's very thin, but it comes out of a faucet from a still place in the universe. It has to come from a still place in the universe. Like the spring from a rock. It has to come from something that doesn't move. The mover himself unmoved, you see. And as it flows, coming back to the water again, as representative time, it flows, and as it flows, as it spreads farther and farther and farther, and that becomes the boundaries of the universe. Now this is just a rough model, but I'm only talking about time itself and just in 1 dimension, 2 dimensions. Now, the fact that it continues to flow and the density means the water is the same from the spigot to wherever it flows. The density is the same. The density of the universe is always the same, and the boundaries are ever expanding. See? And so the same with water. As it flows, it has motion. Now, let's expand this into a stream. Look at a little bubbling stream now. It's not only expanding for more and more and more forever and ever, but as it flows, as little whirlpools. You ever see little whirlpools? You see little whirlpools in a stream. The whirlpool is the energy of the substance spinning. The energy of time. The energy of time spinning round itself, becoming matter. And because it's a gyroscope spinning, it doesn't go as fast as the water. And as the water passes it, it goes off into distance. And the little particle cannot keep up with it, so the distance between the particle and the water, the time passing, is space-time. It's always passing and spinning the little particles. So you take atoms of hydrogen, oxygen, iron, you can cook it, boil it, blow it up. All those atoms keep spinning and it's still iron, nothing changes. Something keeps everything spinning. You think the spinning things would stop spinning sooner or later if you cook it, fry it, jump on it. You see, all spins. The whole universe spins and becomes matter in different forms. Cutting a long story short, but the spinning of time from the timeless source has created matter very quickly. And if God would stop time from flowing, the whole universe would go out, but not even with a bang, gone. There'd be a void. You see? And so, I'm talking about this handful of dirt, how the handful of dirt is made. When you read this book, you'll understand better than science does how the universe is made and how it couldn't have started with a big bang, and you'll appreciate God more. Now, one more thing, and then I'll carry on with my subject matter. Did you all understand that a little bit? A little bit? Pardon? Yes. But that's not, I just wanted to, won't take any questions on the subject. I just want to sell that book. Because and I want you to, because I like it. It's got something in it that's more than just the negativity of my other books. My books are all negative. No, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, No, you're not the right, no, you're not, no, that's not right, that's not right. It's all that. But this is very positive. This is science, and when you appreciate where the origin of science is God. See? And it's just magical, and the order is magnificent, and I explain how the order unfolds. And you see, the no thing becomes something. The time flow becomes mass, something. And something becomes everything, and everything becomes everything else. And Einstein says that the universe is made of very few principles. And I say, I drink to that, but only one, time, from the timeless one. And he communicates to everything through this time. Time is so fast that as I've spoken to you, it's around the universe and back. It has expands in a what we call a not sinusoidal. You ever seen a ball of string, how you wind a ball of string and you keep changing the angles and it becomes three-dimensional? So time comes out of the center of the universe like that expanding ball of string. And so that's how the universe expands. And how those little swirls, three-dimensional swirls called matter, you see? And so, but I've been saying that I've invented a machine. From this came an understanding of that time was energy. Because anything moving has in it kinetic energy, potential energy. Yeah, meaning that if you have a water wheel and you have a river, you can take the energy out of the water. So you should be able to take the energy out of time, because time is made out of everything. Everything is made out of time. Even the center of the earth is the pressure of time pressing on its own creation, creating a molten state inside it. It creates suns if there's a big enough pressure and a large enough volume. See? And so I found a way to invent a machine, very simple machine, and how to get energy from it, although I didn't have the money or the time to make it. It would have been very simple, not too hard. Someone's made one already. So I was holding that back because it was kind of dangerous. Because if the idea is so simple, and the possibilities of getting free energy, the amount of energy that's available in space-time is inconceivable. You have death rays. You can have all kinds of horrible things. So it's either a boon to the world, or it could bring itself to destruction. Someone's already made the machine, but they don't know why it works. They just fiddle with it. They know that there's energy in somewhere. They call it 0-point energy, but they don't know what it is yet. I know what it is, and so therefore I'm releasing in the newsletter after this. I'm releasing why it works, and what the energy is, and how it can be obtained, collapsing magnetic fields. But I'll make it so simple that you can follow it. But the idea is not to get you to make a machine. Again, the idea is to show you that God has provided for everything. That even the energy, that we can actually get free if we're ready for it. But we can self-destruct with it because it's so powerful. See? I've also shown that how you can make a spaceship go faster than the speed of light. You can read that. I'll show you how that's possible. I'll show you how that's possible if this is successful. Anyway, but all that's done not for any other reason, by keep on pointing, because by working with the dirt, by working with the material of the universe, not with people, by working with the dirt, from which I get to show you where God is, and how He makes things. Not that I could duplicate it. I can just observe that these are the principles of how everything begins from the smallest. You see, in your own life, now and come back to your own life. I started to say early today that the Japanese made a beautiful car. I was driving in my friend's car, and it's an older car, and it's just smooth as silk. And I was saying, beautiful engineering. Engineering is the same for Japanese as it is for Americans. And science is not different in Japan as it is for here, or anywhere in the universe. I said because science is self-evident. Once you see it, it's self-evident. Some things are still, some theories are still not right, and that's the Big Bang. How it's so. They've discovered lots of other things, but they still haven't got back to the how it's so. They know all the other principles that stand on it, but they haven't back-engineered it far enough to know that this is not the way it began. I want to show the way it began, because that way, see, there's the communists and people like that. They go backwards in time, trying to find the Piltdown man and Neanderthal man, to show that man's an evolved creature and he just came out of the slime. And I say you're going back to the slime instead. You're not coming out of the slime. The human race is going to go back to it. But the point is, they base their whole philosophy on no God. See? And so much is that way these days. So I'm in competition with that. I want to show just the opposite. I want to show, but you're wrong. This science is made like this. A, B, C, D, all fits. That's why I want you to get that book. And then, of course, the last chapter will be published in the newsletter. And then by having read the book, you'll appreciate, the last chapter. But just to get back to the fact that that engineering and science should be the same for everybody, and it is, when it's understood. So should human behavior. So should the way we should live, and so should the departure from the proper way of living produce certain kinds of phenomenon, which you see all over the world. Tyranny. Who was it said? One of our founding fathers. No, the founding father said, he said, if man does not love God, he shall be ruled by tyrants. Ben Franklin, thank you. And he's dead right. There's a principle. You either love what's right, or you suffer under tyranny. You've become slaves. All who sin are slaves. I mean, there it is again. When you fall from one, you fall to the other. And therefore, the reason why my books are right on the money, and the way you can hear what I'm talking about, because all I'm doing is talking about you. I'm talking about this progression from the wrong assumption. And then, you see, but I can't tell you about, because the good book says, the eye hath not seen, nor the ear heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those that love him. Because you can't talk about that. I have to talk about what you've experienced. Have you experienced this? Have you experienced that? Yes, you have. The reason why, connect the dots. Back engineer your problem. And you keep back engineering your problem, you come back to ego. The first cause of downfall. But when you finally back engineer and you get rid of all your problems, suddenly you're clear. You have clarity about other things. Like I can write a book on science, but I'm not a scientist. See? I can figure out how to make a machine. It takes energy out of space. I know it works. But I won't bore you with all that now, because this is not a seminar about time, space, or machines, free energy from space. But in a manner of speaking, if you become very still, no, if you get very still, you get another kind of energy too. It's called grace. And when you don't have grace, you have to take the energy from environment. See? And how do you get from by sinning, by sucking up excitement, the excitement of love and the excitement of hate, both. And they're both ego-sustaining. Two legs in the earth. Two emotional legs that sustain ego, and it's energy. Oh, love is so exhilarating. It creates fantasy. It creates joy. And then, the morning after the night before, betrayal, emptiness. You're less than you were before. Like gambling. Exciting. You win. You lose. If you win, the moment you gambled, you've lost. So you've been separated. You're separated by the gambling, by eating the forbidden fruit, by indulging the forbidden fruit. Whatever it is, take something, steal something, whatever it is, it's a forbidden thing. You do the forbidden thing, and it takes your soul with it. Now, when you win, you haven't really won at all. You get exhilarated. That's an excitement. If you lose, you get angry. See? And there's either way you feel the loss. So when you win, you haven't got what you think you've got. You've got. You see? Something, but you love the taste of it. You love the glory of it, and so you go after next. But you really think you what they call it, beginner's luck. You really think you got the number and you got the winning streak. You can do no wrong. Bing, you lose. Now you discover that how much you've lost. You feel cheated. Yeah, you have been cheated. Your soul. So, but what is you're hooked? You got to get back from the house what you've lost to the house. Damned if you win, damned if you lose. Love is like that. Damned if you win, because you get hooked to getting that and becoming enslaved for it. It's not what you think it is. It's like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the more you've got to drink, because it doesn't, you see that? It doesn't replace the fluids in your body. It poisons you. But it still will quench the thirst. It's poisoned, the salt, you see. So it's not what it appears to be. It takes, under the illusion, under the cover of the excitement, something's being stolen from you. You're being cheated. And every lover is a betrayer, whether they mean to be or not. Whichever role you play the cheater or the cheated. See? It'll always be that way. It'll never be any different. And all the misery and suffering in America and the world, the broken homes, broken marriages, all have to do, even if you don't get married, it's like you were. You don't have to be married to be yoked up like that. You could be yoked up with one girlfriend or one boyfriend after another. Same principle. It's a game. Politicians play that same game with you. Variation is endless. Same principle. Everything at high makes you high, brings you to a no low. And the highs are anger and love. High is judgment, puffed up, and love is also puffed up. The king or queen feels queenly when she's loved. See? And that's what you're looking for. Appreciation, worship, attention, the center of. And so therefore anything that gives you that enslaves you to it. In the beginning it looks like you're served. But in the end you see that you're enslaved. When you see that you're enslaved, you resent seeing it. Rather than seeing your own weakness that's hooked you, allows you to be penetrated, you start to resent that person. That resentment only separates you more from the good, by which the evil could overcome. Your resentment attaches you to it just as firmly as the lust did. You see? You become part of what you respond to. Whether it's love or hate, you're growing from it. And what grows is ugly. And we're coming to the ugly part. Not just fat. We only have a little while now. We've got a couple hours where we can do our hypnosis thing. Could you get my cross? Someone from the back. Get my cross. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about hypnosis now. You ready for this? You want to see it? Now, just an ordinary piece of wood, you don't have to handle it reverently. It's how it's used. There may be, as I said, we've had a fun day. There's no intentional drama to create to prepare you for what you may be seeing in a little bit, because there may be some people in the audience. There may not be. I don't want to artificially induce it. It's either something in a person ready to come out, and that person may not know it themselves. Or the person may, if I go around, and I may, they can feel it, feel me approaching this thing before I even get there. And then you sometimes see a chain reaction of some people, some people being overcome by this, and it is infectious, which may or may not be hysteria. I'll know the difference. But I want to tell you that there are some conditions that cannot be cured simply by making aware of your emotions and becoming aware of your angers and resentments, because there's something else that lurks in there. Because, let me talk to you about it. I will use hypnosis. I can also use hypnosis as a sort of therapeutic tool. Some of you still have some problems, and some of you have entities in you. Some of you have that already, I know that. And those entities have to be exposed, and the chances are that when you meditate, you may discover those entities within you. And that you don't need a cross, or you don't need a person, you just need a private experience with God. You don't need me to do that, because it will happen at a certain point in your life. Nearly everybody experiences it. I experienced it. And I wasn't such a bad guy. See, I didn't live a bad life. Not a perfect one, but not a bad one, see. I didn't know it was there. I think I knew where I got it from my wife. Yeah. She's been a very rebellious lady, very rebellious, and very difficult. And she's going to have something come out of her one of these days. It's going to be a real whopper. But, because it's always there nipping at me. It's always there nipping. She doesn't know what love is yet. She kind of tolerates it. She thinks she loves me, but she doesn't. I know that. She thinks she does. She said she thinks she respects me, but she doesn't. I've told her. Everything I'm telling you right now, I don't talk behind her back. She doesn't yet. But then I've got to love her anyway. Because I can't be sure when she's ready. Everybody's ready. Even the thief on the cross was ready. But only when the last moment. So you see, God waits for me, I have to wait also. See, so I have a job to do. But where was I with that? There's something that makes a home in all this process of emotional reactions. Something more than emotional reactions is occurring, because we're dealing with temptation, aren't we not? So temptation understands how to exploit your weakness, and so when it does, it is actually the emotional state that connects you to that temptation, that makes you, intimidates you, or seduces you, is the person who does it may not be conscious of what is acting through them. They're hurting you as they've been hurt, and their father was hurt as, his father was hurt, and the great-great-grandfather, it passes all the way down to the beginning. Mother's the same way. It passes down through a long line of people from a very beginning source, exponentially. See? And so therefore there are good people who hurt you, who have that spirit in them, and then they're creating a clone of themselves. It's like a vampire biting somebody, and then they die as a person and come to life as a vampire,
For additional information, please contact the Foundation of Human Understanding at P.O. Box 1000, Grants Pass, Oregon 97528. You may also call us toll-free at 1-800-877-3227. And be sure to visit us on the World Wide Web at www.fhu.com.